He was with us earlier this morning for the panel discussion. Right now, he will be delivering on a CISO dashboard and security matrix. Um, we have tweaked his agenda. We have tweaked his topic from the current agenda, from the previous agenda, because we wanted to differentiate his insights from this morning's panel discussion. Just a short one. Sina is a senior security manager with over a decade of experience in the financial and banking sector, government agencies. He has practiced IT security risk and governance, yeah, and much more. So, over to you, Sina.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Can I know that if you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Let me just tweak it for a second. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sina. Thanks, Christian, to introducing me today. So I supposed to have a different topic today, which was about information security awareness and how we constantly blaming the inside staff, or let's say the people that we call them the weakest link. But since in the morning panel we were discussing about the same, so I decided to change the topic and pick up another topic, which is another area of that my expertise that on a daily basis I'm working on that, which is security matrix and CISO dashboards. So a quick background about me. So I have over 10 years of experience, mainly in cybersecurity. I started my main career in application security, penetration testing, digital forensics, and then day after day, so it has been evolved till I came to the governance area. So in the governance area, we see that are mainly are responsible to see that if the control is in place, if the controls are effective, and mainly support the CISO and based on the compliance state, security posture, and that's where in my previous company I started building a CISO dashboard and helping him to with the overview of the report with a few slides. He can have a better understanding what is the security posture and where is the gap and where they need to invest on. So today we are going to talk about mainly the control and matrix, which is part of the information security governance, and how we should build up a strong control and matrix, and how we can make sure that whether it is effective or not. So usually CISOs are, when they are attending on their day-to-day meetings, they need to answer different kind of questions, depend on which meeting they're attending on and who is their audience. So the common question is always like, whether we are cyber resilient or not. What is our risk posture? Is it increasing? Is it going down? Do you have enough budget? Is the budget have been uh, consumed properly on the right place? What is the risk level? How good we are in the comparison with the competitors? Are we meeting the business objective? Are we comply with the regulatory requirements? Do we have the right tools, and whether the right tools are effective or not? So these are the questions that CISOs usually are answering in their day-to-day kind of meetings. How they can and you know that each of these questions requires lots of analysis to be able to address those questions. So how he can come up with those questions and answers is by having a proper information security governance in place and with the proper control and matrix library. So overall, if we want to define controls are based on the standards, policies, regulatory requirements that we have, we usually define these controls, which later I will discuss about how we need to define the control. And based on the defined control, we need to define the matrix. So for example, if you want to let's say that in a layman terms, if you want to govern a highway, so you say that cars should follow the proper and safe speed. So that would be the control. And how we can govern that to say that, okay, in this kind of a highway with these criteria, the speed should not exceed 100 kilometer per hour. So that would be the matrix. And then, although the highway is allowed to drive for 100, but again, we can define the KRI saying that, okay, from 8, so try not to go above 80, because 80 above, you are going to expose yourself as a risk, and you don't want to reach to 100, because 101 is the non-tolerate area. So the same would go for the KPI. So meaning that based on the controls that we have defined, based on the matrix that we have defined, the performance, the KPI is the performance indicator that help us to make sure that whether we are meeting our SLA, defined performance, or defined timeline. So the combination of all of these together help us to build our control and matrix. So why is it so important to define a good control and matrix? Because if we can't measure, we can't improve it. So if you cannot measure your information security program, so you don't know that where you are having a gap, and what is the priority, and where is the highest risk that you need to address. So the control and matrix helps you to, based on the existing information security program that you have and the roadmap that you have defined over the time. So as you know, information security is a journey over the time, helping you that to know where you need to focus rather than randomly, because today you heard that there is a new ransomware jump here, and then there's a new attack jump over there, there's a new technology jump another. To avoid jumping here and there, so the control matrix usually helps you to uh, attach you and make you stay on the track with your information security program that you have defined. So now we need to understand how we should define our control and matrix. So each organization has a different kind of risk tolerance. If different organizations have a different business objective. So let's say that for a company, the integrity is way more important than confidentiality, or another company, availability is more important. So based on these three key area, that what is their main area that they want to secure, and what is the business objective. And let's say that if the business is planning to migrate to the cloud, so we should start defining controls, be able to controlling the cloud environment, setting up and defining proper controls and measure that, govern that. So that's why the first step before defining your controls or matrix, you need to know what organization you are dealing with, because different organization may have a different regulatory requirement as well. They may have, and also not all the organizations have the same risk tolerance. Some companies, usually like financial sector, especially in the banking sector, they might even care about their low risk as well. So critical, high, medium, low. But some other organization, their focus, there might be not that risk driven company, and they might only focus on the critical and high risk, not more than that, because they have too much to invest, and they're not ready yet to think about medium or low risk, why they are still lacking of proper controls in the critical area. So by knowing your organization, which obviously by knowing your organization, you know what regulatory requirement you also need to have. Let's say that if I'm in the banking sector, my organization is a finance sector, so I don't need to think about HIPAA, or I don't need to think about SCADA or telco, for example, requirement, but I need to think about ISMS, PCI DSS, or other standards or regulatory requirement that relate to the financial sector. So by knowing your organization, the regulatory requirement, business objective, you know that what controls do you need to have it in place and what you need to measure. And then based on like I said, information security is a journey. So as you keep monitoring that, you find a gap, you take action, improve it. Sometimes based on the KRI and KPI that you have, you realize that it's not a technology issue, for example, it's a process issue. So you need to improve your process issue. Sometimes you realize that the problem is not technology, is not process, is a people issue. So the control measurement, these two together helps you to tackle the technology, process, and people as well. So what is the main objective of these controls and matrix? So basically, the controls helps you, based on the defined information security program that we have, helps you to understand what is your current security posture and what is your maturity level. Let's say that you are at level 3 and you are based on your business objective and your regulatory requirement, you need to within the next 2 years, next 5 years, next 1 years, based on the requirement, you need to reach to maturity level 5. So in that case, so the control matrix helps you to know that, okay, to reach there, where you need to focus more, where you need to invest more, where you need to kind of deploy more technology, what is your gap in the resources such as people, and what is your gap in terms of the processes. At the same time, it helps you because while you're investing on your technology, people, process, and trying to improve the program and reach to where you want to be, it helps you also to gauge, to measure whether your controls are effective or not, or whether what you have invested to buy the required technology, are they meeting your requirement? So let's say that you have invested $2 million to buy a certain technology, but again, the same risk is still happening there. The same risk is still there. So in that case, meaning that you have not either purchased a right technology or it has not deployed properly, could be a configuration issue, or there were a bigger gap that you had to address, but still you address somewhere that you don't need to that much. So the control helps you to also prioritize where you need to tackle first. So like I said, information security is a program. It should be, for example, we need to reach there within next 2 years. So in that case, we are not going to fix everything in one shot. Always remember that whenever I was coming with a new idea to my in my previous company to my boss, boss, we should fix this. Then he would say that, Sina, there are 1,000 things to fix. Why this? So he was trying to tell me that we need how we should do the prioritization and how we should choose the right solution or the right approach and when we should do that. So let's say that now we have 5 critical application internet facing. They have some quite number of the critical vulnerabilities. And on that time, imagine that I want to think about something that might help us to secure ours, for example, for IS awareness. So while we need to invest on a critical application that they have a critical vulnerabilities, investing at this point of time for IS awareness could not be necessarily a requirement, while other we have a bigger fish to fry. So the control and matrix help us to prioritize as well. And also, let's say that based on our regulatory requirements, we need to identify a certain threat within 2 hours or identify, respond, and notify, for example, regulatory authority within 2 days, within 2 hours. So the control matrix help us to know whether we are capable or whether we are capable enough to do that. So these are the objectives these are the expectation that we are having from a very well-defined control matrix. So, but how we should define our control matrix? the control should be smart. So we all know that what does smart meaning that should be intelligent. At the same time, the control should be specific. So we need to know what we want to achieve. Let's say that we want to achieve to 90% patch compliance level. So our target is 90% compliance level of the patches. So that would be specific target that what we want to achieve. Measurable should be measurable, whether we are able to measure. Let's say again, talking about 90% of the patches, the compliance of the patches. So if I can't measure number of the servers that I have, if I can't measure number of the vulnerabilities that I have, how can I come up with a 90% compliance level? Because I might think that I am 90% already, but suddenly tomorrow I realize that, oh, there are 10 other servers that no one was even aware of that. So they were never even part of the patch deployment. And the next one is that the metric should be achievable. Are we even able to achieve that goal? So let's say that if I want to say that target 100% patch, I don't remember. It's so good. Everyone say that best practice deploy security patches, but at this point of time, I have never seen any organization can say that we are 100% patch compliance. So you need to define your metrics achievable. Relevance. So if you're in the financial sector, you need to define your controls relevant to the financial sector. Let's say that if you're in a different organization that, for example, you are not even serving any internet facing system, you are not even serving any payment cards, or we are not even serving any external client, maybe PCI DSS would not be a proper framework for you. So you need to define the standards and the controls relevant to your organization. And also time bound. So when you want to say that I want to reach to 90% compliance, you should be able to define within 1 year, within 2 years. Why you need to have a time bound? Because based on that, you can start planning. Okay, this month I'm going to deploy these servers. Next month I'm going to deploy other servers. So at the same time, while I can plan for my deployment, at the same time I can measure that am I able to meet the timeline. So if I'm going to meet 90%, at this point of time I'm 40%, and as you know, over the time the number of the patches of the new monthly patches will be released as well, going to accumulate as well. So you need to be able to plan at the same time measure whether you are able to meet the time milestone. So that's how we can use. There are different kind of a control. Standards such as the ISO 27001, NIST 853, and the COVID 5. So there are different kind of framework that we can leverage. Let's say that we want to use NIST as our information security program. So the control should be able to tell us how good we are in identifying the threats. So let's say that if you say that I only identified 5 vulnerabilities, doesn't necessarily mean that you are bad or you are good. So back in old time when I was a pen tester, and if I couldn't find any vulnerability, I was keep thinking that am I doing something wrong? Why I couldn't find any vulnerability? Is it possible that this website or that server doesn't have any vulnerability? So using a proper framework helps you to identify how good you are, for example, in identifying the threats. Again, and the next step, protect how good we are, to what extent we can protect. Let's say that if you have in the identifying the threats or in protecting the threats, to what extent you can identify, to what extent you can't. So let's say that I can say that I can, because I'm using a signature-based anti-malware, I can 100% detect all of the well-known malwares. But if it's, so that's how we say, how can we detect the incident? So signature based? Yes, I can, based on the signature that I have. How fast? As soon as I can identify that. But again, going back to the previous section that I said that you need to be able to measure. In that case, you need to know how many workstation, how many servers do you have. do they have the required tools on that? Is the agent installed on that machine, and is the agent healthy enough to be able to get the latest signature? Only then you can identify, you can protect, or you can detect, and then respond. If your, for example, if your log monitoring system is not there, probably you are not going to pick up those events from your antivirus system or from your EDR. So obviously, if you can't identify that, or if you can't detect it, you are not being able to respond it on a timely manner as well. So there are many of organizations that they might have been already compromised, but they just never know. So that's why we always say that there are two type of a organization: the one that they got compromised, and the one that they don't know that they are compromised. So, and then and the next one that we want to gauge that is that how good we are in resiliency. So we have put all of the required security controls there. We had defined very stringent processes. People are still very well skilled. They have gone through a lot of training, but again, okay, after all of this investment, imagine that I got a cyber attack, which is inevitable, and am I able to go back to the business within a short time, with a minimum financial loss, with a minimum reputation loss, with a minimum regulatory loss? So that's what we need to gauge using our control and matrix. But what make us, one of the challenges that we are going to face, what makes us in here in a difficult situation, is that the data need to be reliable. The more we know, the better we can decide strategically, and the more and the better we can group. So, and on the other hand, so let's say that there are 1,000 metrics. If you want to Google it, there are 1,000 metrics that they have defined as a KRI, as a KPI to gauge the environment. But the point is that there are challenges as well. You can't measure everything, obviously. It's good to measure everything, but you can't. I mean, in the practical world, we don't have a luxury time and resources and money to be able to measure every single detail. On the other hand, I have been experienced that many of the time that we come up with a report, some of the people, for example, from the operation team, from the senior management, they ask that how this report has been calculated. So they don't know that. So when they want to verify the same report in their environment, especially if you are working in a global sector, like you have different countries under your portfolio, and you need to provide report for all of these countries. So you realize that, okay, some of them, they might not even have a proper awareness that how, for example, a patch report has been calculated, because they were only counting the patch compliance for the production. Another country were checking based on the production and their UAT environment. And for us, for example, I'm looking at all of the environment. So it could be different way of calculating the report. So either of us could be right or wrong, but what I'm trying to say is that we need to have a proper awareness of how these metrics have been calculated and how these metrics have been defined. The metrics should be contextual as well. So let's say that I have a report saying that I have 10,000 vulnerabilities. So is it a good or is it bad? 10,000, 5,000? Yeah, it's an eye-opening number. But let's say that out of that 10,000, only 100 of them are exploitable. So here we can say that our metrics should, for example, for the vulnerability management, should use CVSS score to tell us that, okay, we have 1,000, we have 5,000 or 1 million vulnerability, but only 100 of them are exploitable. So in that case, whether we should define ourselves at a high risk or as a low risk or medium. So these are the area that we need to discuss. But our matrix should be contextual. So be able to say that, okay, we have 5,000 vulnerability, but those 5,000 vulnerability mainly are for internal system, not external facing servers. It doesn't have a customer data. It's behind the net. It's internal within the DMZ, and it's not going to is not that critical comparing with the a server that is internet facing with the customer data. Another thing is that you know that this the report that you are going to generate going to they're going to be accessible by different audience. It could be from the compliance team, it could be from audit team, it could be from the senior management. Senior management doesn't understand that, for example, when we say that we have 10,000 SQL injection or cross-site scripting, so they know penny and cent. So you need to be able to translate your matrix. When I say that contextual, that's where it's going to help you. Saying that, yeah, we have a high number of the volume of the vulnerability, but 20% of those vulnerabilities are for the critical servers. That if those critical servers goes down, we are going to lose $1 million per, for example, per day. So that's the point that you can get the support from the management saying, okay, how should we resolve this? So yeah, I need to deploy these, and upgrade those legacy application, install some virtual patching, all of those. So that's where you can get the proper support from your audience as well, if you know how to transfer. So that's one of the challenges that most of the CISOs having, that they have difficulties translating the technical jargon to the business language to be able to meet their requirement. So your metrics should have a reliable data as well. So meaning that if you come up with a scan result, for example, and you say that this website has a cross-site scripting or SQL injection, so it should be able to validate that info. So meaning that if another one want to scan the same site, find the same vulnerability. If it's more, it's better, but at least find the same vulnerability could be able to find. So the inventory should be there. So if you don't have an inventory, how can you say that whether you are comply or not? Because you are coming up with 100 servers while we have 500 servers. Tomorrow you get compromised and you never know from which server you got it because you never had it in your list. So your metrics should kind of address all of those requirements and challenges. So to be able to meet this requirement, and each of these reports that we were talking about, each of these metrics that we come up about, so each of them requires a lengthy time, a very tedious time to populate all of those reports. So less is more. So you don't need. It's good to have 1,000 controls, but you don't need to report all of those 1,000 controls to your CISO, or you don't need to report that to your CIO, CTOs, or even stakeholders that you have. If you are talking with your data governance team, probably you don't need to report many of the controls which is not related to data protection or data governance, privacy. If you are talking with the compliance team, they are interested to know from the compliance state rather than operation wise. So that's how you should the CISO should come up with a dashboard, should have a dashboard that can easily, like a snap, can give the information, which a lot of integration is required, and you don't want to bore your CISO or your audience with the lengthy text such as 300 qualies or tenable scan results. So you want to give a very neat, clear, short, brief report within a few slides. Say that, okay, these are critical servers. They are good. High risk servers, we have some patch issue, but they are going to be fixed by this date. So your CISO dashboard should be very brief, avoid any lengthy discussion or details inside of it, just to give a very visualized report, which in here, again, like I said, integration and visualization helps you a lot. They are like a guardian angel for you. So what you need to have in your CISO dashboard that can give you a very high level information. First of all, what is your vulnerability, how your vulnerability management program is running? What is the number state of the vulnerable servers? Again, if you have 1,000 number of vulnerable server, I'm not saying necessarily they are good or bad. So you need to see that how many of them are exploitable and how many of them are your crown jewels. So that's how you can highlight it. So if a server is sitting back in your room with no connectivity with the internet, it's not that important comparing with the servers that they are containing the sensitive information. Don't jump on me. So I know that that silly server back in my room, that also can be connected to another server, and using some pivoting, you can from one server jump to another server to reach that critical server. That's where you are having the segmentation issue. So again, meaning that you didn't follow the proper compliance matrix area. So yeah, we know that we need to patch, but are we able to patch? How many percentage have been patched, and whether we have been able to meet the patch timeline? If we have defined it within 1 month, are we able to do that? If we have defined it within 2 months, are we able to do that? So security tools health state is another one. So you may have invested like thousands of millions of dollars of buying antivirus, EDR, different security agents such as DLP, tenable scanners, and all of those things. But imagine that if those agents that you have installed on your server or workstation are not healthy, if they are not reporting back to the console, is like a dummy agent. They are not functioning for you. They're just a dead agent over there without any functionality, or probably they are not even get the latest signature, latest update. So they are not following the commands that has been issued from the console. So another important one, whether you are comply or not, whether you are meeting your compliance requirements. So these are the areas that you need to have in your CISO dashboard. So when your CISO open the dashboard, the first thing he wants to know, how much budget has left. We are in Q4. How much budget is left? So instead of expecting him now, he sent email to here and there. Okay, how much money we have left? Because recently we just got an incident. Immediately we need to fix it. Tell me how much. So, but if you have a CISO dashboard with a budget consumption, like a snap, you can have it in your hand. And again, all of this required integration. So I keep saying that integration, automation, these two are going to help you a lot. And visualization helps to give a fast snapshot what is going on. So imagine that now you have defined the control framework, you have defined your matrix, the CISO dashboard is done. So now you want to prepare your report. So the CISO, usually they're meeting different people. So he has different kind of report. So let's say that as someone that I'm helping the CISO, so I need to generate a report, for example, for he himself, that he needs to know what is our security posture. So that's the kind of a luxury time that I can come up with some technical aspect. At the same time, I don't want to bore him with 10 pages of slides. So I just need to come up with the neat technical language, but it's still very neat information. So now imagine that I want to come up with another report for the C-suite, so which would be different. So they don't want to come up with all of those jargon technical words. They are more interested in the matrix, such as penny and cent, downtime. So these are the topics that can help them to have a better understanding, rather than saying the 1,000 vulnerability that their eyes might be open, but they would say that, okay, it's a big number, but is it good or bad? So, and the next one is that you want to report to the board. So for each of them, you also need to know who is your audience. If it's board, what is their level of understanding? How much they know about cybersecurity? How much, in fact, if they don't know, it's your failure, CISO, because you didn't invest enough your time to run your IS awareness, for security culture awareness, and uplifting their knowledge. So again, so you need to invest on that area as well, which was another topic that I supposed to have today. But anyway, so you need to train your board to make your life easier. But at the same time, when you want to come up with the report, you need to expect that you are not the only one coming with those reports. There are other people that are reporting to them as well. So you need to make it short, understanding, interesting, eye-opening. At the same time, instead of just saying that we have a problem here or there, you as a CISO, you need to come up with a solution as well. I have a problem in here. I know that C-suite board knows that we have a problem. but we need this budget, which needs your approval to fix this within this time window. And if we can fix that, we are going to mitigate potential risk of the reputational damage or a regulatory requirement. Or let's say that our competitor is going to the cloud and we are still on the on-premise infrastructure. By that, if we move to cloud as soon as possible, with these information security program that we have defined, we can meet the timeline. So I hope that this quick session that I have defined for today be able to address very well on your security matrix and the controls that we need to have in our CISO dashboard. Thanks for everyone. If you have any question.
Yes. Actually, I have two questions for you.
Yes.
How to know whether our security key metrics are effective?
Okay, so imagine that we have two different reports. One report says that how good we are with our patch, and another report says that how good we are with our pen test, and another report says that how good we are or what is our vulnerability assessment result. So by right, these three reports, let's say that the scope is the same. So these three reports should be tally. So if your VA says that you are green, Pentest says that you're red, something is wrong in here.
Right.
So if your patch is green and the other two is red, so meaning that someone is not reporting you correctly, or your measurement is not defined well. So let's say that for patch, you are saying that your time window is 3 months. Then for VA, you say that your time window is 1 month. So there is a gap between these two measurements. So that's why they never can meet each other in the right time.
Okay, and the next question is how to choose the right security key metrics and thresholds.
Okay, like I said again, you need to first know your organization. Who is your which company you're working with. So based on that, you need to define their control. Then who is your audience? Tell you that what kind of report you need to provide to them. So then in between, we have the threshold. So the threshold is something that we need to understand the business objective, the risk culture of the organization, and to know that how risk-driven company we are, and get the endorsement from the management. So if they say that we only want to focus on the critical and we don't want to miss one critical patch, then your threshold should be saying that if there is a server with one missing critical patches, that should be on a high risk. So your threshold should be based on you need to engage a different stakeholder from your application, business, infrastructure, IT, and security together to define a threshold, not too loose, not too practically deployable. So that's why I'm mentioning here that your measurement should be achievable as well. So that's how you should come up with the threshold.
Okay, thank you so much, Sina. I think that's about it for today and for Cyber Attack Kuala Lumpur 2020. Thank you everyone for your time and speakers for the insightful presentation. Okay, yeah. So somebody asked me to share the recording. I will. I'm Janice. I hope to meet everyone face to face next year. Take care and bye bye.
Bye.